Half a day and welcome to the Chamber Member Spotlight Podcast, where we feature one of our many small business members, the backbone of our island community. They provide much needed services and products, employ our residents, pay taxes, and give back to our community in a number of ways. And we're so pleased to recognize our Centurion Plus sponsors, Atkins Kroll Chevrolet and First Hawaiian Bank, and our Centurion sponsor, South Pacific Petroleum Corporation, who are sponsoring today's podcast. We're so glad you joined us today. My name is Catherine Castro, your host for the Chamber Member Spotlight Podcast. We are excited to feature our member, Gray by Grant, represented today by Austin Grant, owner and creative director. Half a day and welcome to the podcast, Austin.
Half a day, thanks for having me.
We're super excited to sit with you and let's learn a little bit more about your company and learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Yes.
Okay, let's do this. Okay. So you know what? I've known you for a long time, and I'm just so proud of your journey. So why don't we tell the listening audience, like, how did you get involved with, what was the inspiration with starting Gray by Grant?
Yeah. So I guess I can just introduce Gray by Grant
Yeah.
and what we kind of do. But pretty much it's adding color to everyday aspects of life.
Nice.
And that kind of evolved through the years. Mm-hmm. We started in 2019, just right before the pandemic. And so it was kind of an opportune time to do it because everything was still open. We were still able to get our licensing and everything. And then pandemic hit and everyone needed some kind of way to celebrate and still live their lives and celebrate birthdays and anniversaries. And we found a way to do that with balloons. So we were doing home deliveries safely and with the protocols in place.
Yes.
And that kind of built our name. And so we've actually been in operation for 5 years now. And that snowballed into what it is now. Balloons we don't do so much, but we're now expanding into floral design and events. And so time has just flown with our progress and our expansion.
I noticed that. I noticed that the latest Instagram post that you have, you're doing event planning.
Yes, yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So, you know what I find super interesting is that not only are you running this business full time, you are employed by a local government agency, and you are a master's degree student.
Yes.
Tell me, how do you balance all of this?
Yeah, so prior to working at the Guam Airport, I was at GIDA, Guam Economic Development Authority. And being around so many businesses and entrepreneurs made me really just dive into being able to manage all those things and still have a hobby on the side. So for me, it was working in government. At that time, it was GIDA, and then trying to find a business that satisfied my passion, created revenue for me, in addition to my government position. So just being around all those inspirational people like yourself and meeting people in the community, I just did it. I just started, and it's been a challenge to balance all three, being a government official or serving in government, and then owning a business, and then pursuing my college career. So it's doable for anyone that needs to hear that. It's possible.
Yes, it is.
And sometimes you just need to step back and kind of look at individual parts and see what needs your time and focus. And for me, that has allowed me to focus on the business, focus on government service, and then now a student at the University of Guam.
Fantastic. Do you have a partner in Gray by Grant?
No, I mean, at the start of it, it was just me. So from 2019 to maybe 2021 was me. And then it was just picking up so quickly after the pandemic kind of subsided. So then my sister came on board and she was helping me. And then she pursued her own career in military. And so she left in 2023. And so since then, it's been me solo. I have friends helping here and there, but for the most part, it's just me.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
I am, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, so even the floral design stuff, that's you as well?
Yeah, everyone always is surprised when I say it's just me, but like other artists, sometimes you can't really transfer that to a worker, right? So that's something you kind of have to build, and they have to have it in them. So for me, I can't just put out an ad for a florist and hope that the design and brand that we have is going to be something they can mimic right away.
Right.
So I keep it close to my heart. It's
Sure,
a
of
passion of
course,
mine.
yeah.
So a lot of the design is pretty much just me. If it's logistics, then I kind of outsource that or other things that I may need. But pretty much design is all me.
You know what I noticed too, and what's really cool about living here in Guam is that event planners and stylists and florists and photographers, they all kind of work together,
Yeah.
right? And I noticed that, and you know what's really cool about it is that you guys give each other props,
Yeah.
right? You guys say like, hey, you know, it was fantastic working with so and so XYZ company, and I really admire that. I think that, you know, I'm not sure like how well that works in other places, but certainly in Guam, that speaks volumes about how the work ethic and the camaraderie and the respect in the relationships that are forged, right, in doing something together.
Yeah, a lot of it is passion. So I think
Yeah.
we all have a common passion for that in that industry, and so we can kind of relate without even having to say anything, right? We just look at each other's work and admire it. Although it may be very different, we can still find ways to kind of connect. And for me, you're true. I mean, that's true. That it's such a small island too, so there's no way of avoiding each other or creating this kind of competitive approach to anything because really it requires a community effort to kind of get small businesses thriving.
Yeah. That's what we have, found, like living here on Guam as a small island. Even though we're competitors, we end up helping each other in the long run, right? I mean, because it works for us. It helps each other. We build each other up, and it just works well for our community. So for somebody that is in this business, certainly you have to have a certain amount of inventory. How is how have your experience been? You said you started before the pandemic. I think we had all of this like supply chain issues and things like that. And do you purchase locally? Do you have local distributors here, or do you have off-island distributors that you work closely with? How does that work for you and your business?
Yeah, I mean, you can see it through almost every business that getting a supply or a good supply and a constant supply is always hard, and then at a low cost is even harder, right? So, at the start, our balloon products were all U.S. based, all U.S. made. So we were lucky that it was just going to be direct from U.S. to Guam. With flowers, a little bit difficult because the seasons, the timing, it doesn't last long, right? You get it on a plane, and it's good for like a week or so. So that's also has been a challenge for us to kind of manage that. But we have local wholesalers that we supply from. We try to get locally in terms of like the local flowers, but as you know, the weather and all of that, the typhoon that just recently passed has really shaken up local farmers. And so I hope in the next few years we can kind of expand that because there is great soil on Guam for us to plant and produce our own florals. But it's also about the local supporting that, right? Because everyone, they want something different, they want something unique, but how can we tie that into our economy and our culture and how we can build that? So I've always, even at my time in Gita, I was always looking at ways to kind of expand that they're doing aquaculture, but also agriculture. How can we expand that? And one look was taking and seeing how we can produce our own florals, which is not everyone's interest, but I mean, I think there is a niche for it.
Certainly, and I think that everywhere you go, there's always some beautiful botanical garden, right, that you could go to as a visitor, and then for the local families and residents to be proud of, to maybe even use as a rental area for families and stuff like that. I mean, there's just so much opportunities that we could look into as business people, as residents of Guam to explore, right? And I think that you've got something there, and certainly that's something for people to maybe kind of look into. What are your you've built your business up, right? You started with balloons and floral arrangements and now you're at event planning. What do you have a favorite? Like, what's your passion? What are you really passionate about? Your favorite part of your business?
Every time I open up about this, people always are surprised, but it's really funerals. Funerals really give me the most. They are the most impactful to me, and the reason is because it's the last moment that someone's going to be seen, and it's the last time they're going to be laid to rest or be honored. And so for me, being a part of that is the most rewarding. And I don't say rewarding as someone death is rewarding, but I mean just the ability to share that moment in their grief.
Yeah.
And weddings do the same, but the meaning isn't as much as a funeral for me. And so whenever there is a death, and in Guam we honor deaths very significantly in our culture. So as my balloons shifted to floral, I saw a big shift in also demand for funeral flowers. And so I think for me, the work that I put out is best when it's something that I find gratitude in, and for me it's being able to honor someone that's passed. And so if I ever look at photos of stuff I've done, I always compare, like, you know, how can I do better, or where's something I missed, or a detail I forgot. And when I look at funerals, I'm like, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want our brand to stand for. And so whenever I get that question, it's always been funerals. I think even since I started in 2019, it's what are your, I don't want to say favorite events, but I mean, what gives me the most joy in doing what I'm doing? It's funerals.
Yeah, I need to talk to you on the side there, because, you know, I'm actually grieving the loss of my mom, and I really wanted to do something. And you weren't here, and I was working with somebody, and they just didn't quite understand where I was getting. And I mean, and obviously it turned out so pretty, and you know, we really wanted to give her, you know, the most beautiful send off as we could, right? Because she was just such a wonderful, remarkable woman. And but yeah, so maybe I'll talk to you on the side about that.
I want to offer my condolences, because Rebecca messaged me, and I think I was leaving the following day, and I just felt so bad.
No,
because,
it's okay.
just that moment, just sharing that moment with Rebecca was like, man, the heartache I felt for not being able to do it just showed me that this is why I do what I do, is being able to capture all that sadness and grief and just present it in floral, which is around us. Everywhere you look, there's flowers, and we just find meaning in it different ways. And so up until you just said it, it reminded me of that feeling I felt. I for some reason I felt guilty, but I think it was more of that missed opportunity to kind of you know, get your grief and sadness and kind of, you know, honor your mom in that way.
Yeah. And I think that's beautiful, right? I think that, you know, when you're going through it, right, and there's so many things that you miss, but there's so many things that are so impactful to you at the same time, right? Because you're just hit by so many emotions, right? And really, the flowers and the people that come and love on you at your the time that you need them the most is just so beautiful, right? So anyway, and that's what I love about Guam as well.
Well, in Guam, you can tell how much someone is loved by the number of flowers they receive.
Exactly.
And I noticed that in all the funerals I've attended and done. Yeah.
I agree. So going on to, you know, more fun things about the business. I mean, what was fun that when I first learned about you was on social media.
Yeah.
How much has that impacted your business, being on social media?
Going back to, it's really just me. I mean, I really built that from ground, like zero followers. And the pandemic really, boosted the following and the interest.
Yes.
And then just putting our work out there and ensuring that it was quality work, that we were consistent with what we were doing, that our pricing was competitive. I think that really just added to our value in the community. And then the trend started to pick up with balloons, and then you saw these 5 other businesses start up, and then we had to kind of insert ourselves back into that, like, we're doing it. This is us. We've been doing it for so long. But I never needed to put out an ad about that. I think it always just showed in our product and our work.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for that. That was well received by the community.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think that, I mean, people, your photos, your posts, stories, whatever they're called in various, platforms. They really speak for themselves, right? And it's just amazing what you can do with balloons and what you can do with your florals, and now what you can do with your events. So, people listening, and they're super excited. They want to work with you. What is your calendar like? How soon do they need to be on your calendar to be able to work with you, Austin?
Well, honestly, going back to graduate school, I'm trying to finish my master's this year, and so that'll take me through July 2025. So I've been taking clients here and there, but technically we're actually closed until that point in time. So I'm open to discussing or consulting with businesses. I've really been focusing on corporate events and corporate projects, just because I feel the value I have in both being in the private and the government sector has kind of built my understanding of that and how that works, and so and my experience with event planning. So I still take on birthday parties and anniversaries and things like that, but I think my focus has now been more corporate stuff. So all my fellow chamber members, if you're out there, I'm happy to take on any grand openings, any anniversaries for your corporate anniversaries.
Yes, awesome. So, you're looking at doing this after your graduation. What are some? Can you reveal what your plans are after July 2025?
Yeah. Well, my master's has been in the works for some time. I went to college right after high school. Really didn't find like I was in the right place at the right time. So I took a few years off, worked at a local flower shop, and kind of built my experience in that industry. And then I worked at Gita. And then working at Gita, I was like, okay, well, how can I further my career in government? And it was about receiving a degree and kind of getting the documentation and the experience you needed in college to kind of work up the corporate ladder. So now that's in the works and almost at completion, thankfully, in July. It's really just giving back to the community, and I really wanted to be a business that could share in those experiences and be able to give back. So it's never been about profit for me, and thankfully I can say that because I have other areas of income. But for me, Great by Grand has really been a passion, and I want to keep it that way for as long as I can. I never want to wake up and be like, oh man, I'm doing flowers today. I don't feel like doing flowers. To this day, I've never woken up and been like, man, I don't want to do flowers today or balloons today. It's always been a passion of mine. And so until that point when that shifts, then I really need to evaluate where the business is going, because that's always been about passion and finding joy in what I'm doing.
Excellent. What would you tell people who are interested in starting their own business?
Yeah. I had a friend call me up a few days ago, and he was like, hey, I have this business. It's really out of the park. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. My brother said you were the perfect person to call, and I was like, I don't know, that's an insult. No. I took it as a compliment because, we were high school friends, and we've never spoken for almost 10 years now. And all of a sudden he's like, hey, you're the perfect person to call. And I was like, who would have thought that 10 years from now, a classmate would be calling me and asking me for advice? But at the end of the call, and the call was like 20 minutes. Of course, it got into the revenue tax part and the licensing and the sourcing and the connecting. And I said, really, it's about just doing it. If in 2019, if I ever hesitated about doing it, I would have never started. And no matter how big or small that idea may be, if you just start, someone is going to be there, because you can't do it alone. I keep saying it's just me, but really behind me is like my family, my friends who've supported me from the back end. And if I didn't have that, I don't know if I could continue pushing through and pursuing this passion. So at the end of the call, I did say, you know what, just do it. If you have your license, that's the first start, but really just start connecting with people and making sure that whatever product or service you're putting out is representative of you. Because sometimes people want to put out a brand or a t-shirt or a clothing brand, and it's not them. It's just a product they want to sell because they see the dollar value behind it. But oftentimes that business doesn't last. And for me, our success has been that quality and that product. I think if I look back at, we've progressed in the last 5 years, but the product has still been the same. And it's really just, how does our product make someone feel? And that feeling they had in 2019 is probably the same feeling they'll have in the years to come for our business.
Good advice. So, you know, you've come quite a ways from when you first started in 2019. You joined the chamber in between, right? How has that helped your company?
I met a lot of new people. In fact, my first chamber meeting, which I attended on behalf of the airport, I forget who it was, but I was recognized, and I was totally not expecting that. And then all the chamber members looked at me, and I was like, man, I didn't even have a slide on to show, but I just felt like I felt so welcomed by them. I was obviously one of the younger members, but it was nice to kind of be recognized in that community and see that we're all doing something. We all have a passion. We're all doing something that's benefiting ourselves, but also the community. And it was nice in that recognition. I think there was like 5 other people that was recognized as new chamber members, and it just felt like you didn't need to belong there, but now this is where you should be. Like this is where you need to be in order to connect and build relationships. Because in Guam, going back to your statement earlier, like without that connection, without working with competitors, without understanding and creating relationships, I mean, there's no way for the business to move forward.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm so glad that, you know, you became a part of the chamber, and we're always happy to recommend you when people ask us who's the best, you know, who should we go to, right? And, you know, what are some of your thoughts about doing business on Guam? Are you, you know, what was the hardest thing about maybe starting your business?
Everyone's gonna obviously go to tax. I mean, for some reason everyone goes to tax, revenue tax. But really, that hasn't been the challenging part for me. It hasn't been that. I don't know if there's ever been a challenge. It's been personal about, can I do this? Am I at 20? Well, I'm 26 now, but at that time I was very young. I was 21 when I started. If I ever doubted myself, that would have been the most challenging part, because
so it was like that self-confidence.
Correct.
Okay.
And then, you know, at that point in time, I still was trying to find myself, and I'm still trying to find myself. But that the business was growing regardless if I found myself or not. Right? I still had clients calling me and asking me.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think the most challenging part in these last 5 years have just been pushing. Keeping that drive forward, because
challenging yourself.
I mean, we had a pandemic that I had to overcome.
Sure.
We had the typhoon.
Oh my goodness.
And that really affected our shipping demand, and I mean the shipping, and which ultimately affected the demand of our product. And I think we just never know what's going to come, whether it's personal challenges or, you know, environmental or natural disaster. But just knowing that you can get through anything that comes about is very important. And I think for Guam business owners, that's more crucial, because we're so far away from these resources and we're very small. But I think our community is what keeps us afloat in terms of small businesses.
So is that the advice that you would give to anybody that is interested in starting their business?
I think, you know, I started my first business in 2019, but since then I've had 5-6 business ideas in my head since then, and I haven't pursued any of them. But I can imagine that if I just tried at all 6, you know, what more success could either one of those have? So going back to it earlier, like if you just start, you just might hit, you know, quote unquote jackpot of it. But really, the jackpot isn't the gold or the money. It's really just the satisfaction, the joy that you bring to the clients. And for me, I'm so fortunate that it's through flowers, but for many other people, it could be through coconut candy or gujaria or apparel. You know what I mean? So there's different ways to capture someone's emotion, and for me, it's through what I do, and I'm just been so grateful to be able to do that.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. I learned so much about you, and I'm sure our listening audience did too. And this has been a really nice time. Thank you so much for being here, Austin.
Appreciate it.
All right. I'd like to thank our listeners for tuning in and listening to today's show. And we encourage our residents to support our small businesses like Gray by Grant that make a big difference in our community. Please drop us a note to share your comments on this episode, or visit our website or social media platforms. We really appreciate your feedback. We look forward to having you on the Chamber Member Spotlight podcast again soon. And if you haven't already heard it, we also have another podcast called Chamber BizBox, which features issues and challenges that face our business community. They're currently available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, so give those podcasts a listen. This is your host, Catherine Castro. Until next time, take good care and make it a great day, Guam.